Welcome to 221B Baker Street, by way of the Southgate Bridge. I am Sherlock Holmes. This is my colleague, Dr. Watson. Actually, I am your host, Zachary Hare, and while she is not Watson, she is the Watson to my home, Kristen Deere.
Hi.
And to our listeners, we really hope you're listening, and this is the first thing you're hearing in the recording. We had a little slip-up with last week's show, and apparently all the pre-show banter that we do before the recording got put up. God, if people do my old Game of Thrones host, if that stuff got put off, woo, the cops would have been called.
Oh, no. I don't want to
No.
hear
but of course, we are here talking about this week's elementary, quite an interesting and unusual one.
The best way out is always through.
That's right. That is right. And I'm going to do the whole podcast in silly voices like this, just the whole thing.
Please don't.
Oh, fine.
I don't even know.
Did you say in or through?
Poirot or something.
Okay, so anyways. So we start, apparently, for one of the weirdest side cases, it wasn't even a side case, it was an after, so apparently Sherlock has found the Stanley Cup.
Yes. Although I love this situation at the beginning with the Stanley Cup in the tub, because it's almost like a married couple where the husband is a crazy tinkerer. Yeah. Well, and actually now, because of this episode, that's what I'm always going to think of now. It's like that same situation you've seen on a lot of, except in those situations that it's the married couple, the guy's down in the basement building like some kind of big rocket or something.
Yeah. I just like how well, I was still I understand he found it on the dark web, but I was still a little confused how the Stanley Cup is missing. He does this whole backstory. I'm like, what?
I know. It's actually, I don't know. I'm not a sports person at all, so I just my brain kind of turned off at it. I wasn't really. I didn't care at all.
Yes, it's just. I mean, what do you react when you open the shower and there's the Stanley Cup?
I think my reaction would be, get this out of my way so I can get along with my day, get on with my day.
I like how she just gives him a look like, and he goes, "It can dry somewhere else."
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, and that's another sign of the married couple.
Yeah. And from there, we meet some consumer thieves. Because they're talking, one's talking about getting a plasma, and the other's telling them to get an LED.
Yes.
Okay, something I noticed on the rewatch, this is probably completely unintentional, but while during the scene after they find what's wrong with the guy, there's actually a poster on the back wall that says "responsible" on it.
Oh, I didn't see that.
One of those, you need to do this, and it says just big block letters. And I like how... I knew... I
did a whole different pause to get the name of that company of the old employer.
One was CAG. It was CAG.
Yeah, CAG, Correctional Administration Group.
Yes. And these... criminals, they're going over their haul, and they're getting ready to rob this guy too, until they realize he's got a screwdriver sticking out of his chest.
Yeah.
Although he does, one of them, I like how it's like he's gonna die. He goes, yeah.
I know, the guy's about to walk off. I'm glad that at least one of them was not like horrible,
right? I like how they obviously, like, they're two thieves who will get away with their haul too. They don't get any trouble with anything. They're like, Like, hey, give me that sketch of those two guys been mugging people down the street.
Yeah.
And we also see that Belle's got a little girlfriend.
That was so cute. I love Belle. You know, not liking not liking it because he's old.
I know. I almost want to go back and watch a couple. Like, I should go back and see some watch other episodes. See, I wonder if they slipped in any hints.
I know, and he was so cute with his little girlfriend and his adorable little smile. Ah.
And I like how they're like, bye hon, and then they realize they get called to the same case.
Yep. And the whole time, I thought that Sherlock knew that they were dating. I thought he was like picking up on that. And I thought it was funny that the whole time it was Joan picking up on that. He was, picking up on something completely different.
Interestingly enough, they both picked up on something the other one. Well, yeah, because she picked it up for different. Yeah, that she didn't pick up the eye. Well, he didn't really detect the eye thing. He already knew.
Right.
Although, yeah, I do think it's odd that Sherlock. I mean, I know Sherlock's not exactly the most. He would. That seems like something he would notice.
Right. Although his attention was diverted to his knowledge, of what she was.
That's true.
So I think maybe he was paying attention to that because he knew already. It caused him to like kind of think in a different direction or something. I don't know.
And we also see that apparently Sherlock can identify fingerprints, women or gender by the eye.
Yeah, ridges and valleys on a fingerprint.
Apparently, his eyes come with a zoom.
Yeah, that's really odd. I mean, he was looking at it from the side, but dude, seriously? It doesn't seem. It doesn't. Wow, I don't
like
know.
that scene where Detective Scott was like, "You can come on, you can see," and Belle's just like, "Yeah, he can."
Well, but you know what? Now that I think about it, you probably could actually.
Yeah, that's what I could believe that.
It's a huge thumb. It's probably not a woman. A huge finger.
Yeah.
It's probably not a woman. Because, most men who have that, like a really huge fingerprint, that's usually, almost always going to be a man.
And so
if it was a big, if it was really big, I could see how he could see that. If it was a woman's, though, I don't see how he could see the difference because some men have smaller fingers.
Oh, well, I can believe it. So from there we find out the judge. Oh yeah, because Sherlock, he loves. This is like the second episode in a row where he's like the smell of perfume.
Yes, and it's so funny that he knew that immediately that he had sex, but he's he's picking up on all these little clues, but not on Belle and Detective Scott.
Although,
but anyway,
if we want to do semantics, we could say Sherlock never actually said he didn't know that. He just said he thought she was talking about her being an IA. So it's believable he did know, he just didn't comment it.
No, he did say that. He said he was surprised he didn't pick up on that.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like the way, like how it was just weird, like how it's true, like how they, I don't know.
Actually, I thought it was kind of cute because, I mean, okay, we're skipping ahead here, but when Jones said that, the way he reacted, like, oh, and then saying, I'm surprised I didn't pick up on that. But then he had this little smirk, like, oh, that is so awesome. You can tell that he's thinking that's really good that she could pick up on that, and I was focused on something else, but that's funny. He was like amused by
Right.
it.
And so from there we find out the source of that perfume. The judge had a secret girlfriend.
Yes. And also they saw that she had left around the same time, and they both had rooms at the Walt.
So she's given them, and but immediately they can eliminate her as a suspect because even though she is a woman, the suspect is a Nikki Moreno, because the prints are in the system, which is convenient.
Yeah.
Although I knew,
and also she had kind of an alibi.
Yeah.
But we find out later something else about that.
I knew something. No, I knew something was up when I saw there was a screwdriver being used, because that's an odd choice.
Yeah.
So from there they go to this, which we see more and more of in the world of private prison, and then we meet this very helpful guard, who we find out a little bit more about later.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's actually, because we know what's going to happen, it's a bit of a hint that he's corrupt, because when Sherlock's like, I'd like to take a look at this, that, and the guy's like, oh, no, we already checked that out.
Yeah.
You don't,
right away.
You don't have, no, it's fine. You don't have to look over there. We are good.
Also, I thought it was funny. There was kind of a theme throughout where Sherlock is giving statistics on female criminals. And Joan seems offended. She's never offended, and yet in this episode, she's kind of offended all throughout.
I made a note of that about the because this is not the first time this season Sherlock has gone out of his way to compliment women criminals or what, or the set, because before he's like I remember one episode, I forget exactly what he said, but it's like, oh, I assure you, Watson, I'm not saying a woman could not bludgeon this man to death. He's.
And so now we know why he does that, because he knows that Watson is. So this time he doesn't do it, and Watson shows what she how she really feels.
Well, it could be that, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but it could be that he's because he knows she's out of sorts a bit, that he's almost comforting her. I don't know.
Maybe it was just the fact that he didn't go out of his way this time to say, oh, women are just as competent at being criminals, Maybe it was just the fact that he didn't do that this time, and she's like, no, you still have to do that. You still have to go out of your way. I don't know. That's weird. It was interesting that she seemed to care so much when she usually doesn't.
Yes. So they're looking over the cell, and of course Watson lets Belle know that she knows. She knows because of the. Again, the hand steps do not seem like something Sherlock would miss.
The what
doesn't? That's how Watson knew Belle and Scott were together, because she said you both have the same hand stamp.
Right.
That just seems like something Sherlock would notice. But they're searching the toss down. They find some Robert Frost, and she's like, "That's doing." It's like what? A gangbanger can't enjoy some poetry of the New England area. It's lovely around here. So they
gift from Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff. Good old Jeff. So the guard there tells that she was a troublemaker, and I think we got an Orange is the New Black reference while they're talking.
Yeah, and then she says we have Netflix,
which I think was an interesting word, but okay.
Yeah. I don't watch that, so I don't.
I still have. Everyone tells me I need to check it out, but I maybe will eventually. But so They go to the
I guess
house.
that's why we don't know what's going on there.
Well, I
I saw
figured that's what.
references on Twitter. I didn't know what it was about.
Yeah. Well, I know enough. No, that's what they were referencing.
Okay.
So, because that's the only prison show on Netflix. So they go. They're talking about. They're back to Brownstone, talking about the case. She thinks she's figured out who Jeff is, and Sherlock is using. Well, he doesn't exactly say what that is to
It
test
looks
the
like
Stanley.
soup.
I'm guessing soup, because apparently you can, which is true. Different. I have. It reminds me of this cup I just bought, and it's surgical steel, and it does make things taste slightly different.
I am I'm kind of a container snob, I guess. Because I hate the taste of the container. I can always taste the container. It has to be a specific type of container where I can't taste it, or else it bugs the crap out of me, because then if it tastes like the container, then everything tastes like the container. Like a can, food from a can, everything tastes like the can, and it doesn't taste like what it's supposed to taste like. I just taste the can. Anyway.
Right. So in other words, Sherlock has the nose. You could be the tongue. What container did this come out of? You take a
Yes,
taste.
exactly.
It is a steel The steel was made after 1957. You can tell by the slight flakes of.
Although that I don't really like that nickname, the tongue. I don't.
Oh, I know. That's why I said it.
That's not such a great name.
Well, is there anything better? Let's see. The taster. That's not much better.
The taster.
The liquor,
It's
no.
like the finder, only it's the taster.
The mouth, no.
The mouth. Stop it. Okay, just stop it now.
Well, we could go back to an old DC superhero. You could be Matter Eater.
Oh.
There was a DC superhero where his power literally just was he could eat anything.
That sounds gross. Matter eater. That sounds worse than anything else.
You think Matter Eater sounds worse than Taster or the tongue?
In a way, yes. Because I don't know. I have a really bad picture in my mind, so let's just leave it at that.
I think most of our listeners have a bad picture in their mind by now.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, they talk about the case when she starts talking about Belle. And what's interesting here is Sherlock gives Scott a compliment.
Yeah.
It surprised the heck out of me. He's like, oh, she seems like she's a good investigator. I'm like, what? Which makes me wonder if she'll pop back in either this season or next.
I hope so. I liked her too.
She seemed good. She had good charisma with the cast. So
Yeah, and I liked her with Belle. They're really cute together. I think. I mean, he made him smile. That's nice. And he's got a really adorable smile, so I like to see that more.
Ooh, I think Kristen got one of those things.
Even more after this episode.
Maybe that's why they gave him a girl.
Yes. Probably so we could see him smile.
Well, I mean, because so the women viewers like you would go, "Ooh, he's with women. I want him."
You could cut out actually.
Get that primal cave woman thing in, Hey, they do that stuff all the time. When they fish in shows, they're like, "Okay, this will get women to like him."
Yeah. Probably.
I do like.
Actually, it was on. People were really going nuts on Twitter. Even
I saw a few people, but so I like how Watson thinks they're talking about Belle and Scott, and Sherlock thinks about the fact she's IA.
Yes, and I mean, it is surprising that he wouldn't notice, but I don't know. He was focused on the fact that she was IA, but also it's just funny, and I like the smirk that he gave when he realized that Watson was talking about something completely different.
Yeah, so we're at obviously the guard's house, and his wife gets an interesting message.
Yes.
I don't know what the killer was thinking. I mean, obviously, like they were trying to frame it, but I think they put like I'm surprised they didn't comment on this. The like the almost taunting text. Well, I think
Well, the grammar seemed wrong. Tell them Nikki said
and then the
hi.
first one, pizza parking lot, send police.
Yeah.
It's like, and they don't comment on that at all. Like no one says, "Oh, that was kind of weird."
It was
Yeah,
definitely
but that's
weird.
what I mean. So I there and go, why did I guess they just assume she's taunting them, and so they go and they find Death, and apparently he was flirting with a prisoner, which is always a good plan.
Yeah.
But he says even though he says the book was probably a good idea, you all expected Belle to go, you think?
Also, before that, when Joan and Sherlock are talking, sorry, when Joan and Sherlock are talking before that, and Joan gets upset again about women not being good criminals, and
Oh yeah, something like would you prefer?
I love that dirty look she gave him. That was
I,
hilarious. Anyway,
I found it weird that she would give because he's just I don't know. I just thought that was a weird aspect of the
I
episode. All that
but
women.
I thought it was funny though.
Oh, it's funny,
Yeah,
definitely.
it was funny. I guess it was just some comedy relief. It was weird. It didn't really fit what he had done in the past, how they normally handle this stuff.
Yeah.
But it,
Would you prefer
yeah,
women were
but it
better
was
criminals?
funny that,
Yeah, so they're talking about how she escaped. They're trying to figure out like they realize this must be some kind of revenge
and
spree
I
or
like that
something. Because
Sherlock sends Joan with Belle to see Jeff without him. It's sort of like, since they're better at the love connections recently.
yeah, so Jeff tells that he was trying to help her legally and he wouldn't help even though he had a thing for he wouldn't he's not stupid enough to do anything else, and that the conditions in the prison were really bad. So they start they believe him, so they start looking at, and then Joan decides to tell Belle about Detective Scott.
Yes.
And I think I understand a lot of bad IA, but we do. I mean, I always find it interesting that so many people are threatened by cops are threatened by IA, but Belle seemed to really react over the top to like almost hypocritical in a
Yeah,
way.
and I think even in telling him, I mean, they both had Sherlock and Joan both had good points of for why they should or shouldn't tell him. But Sherlock had good points too. But Bell, I mean, he was just kind of over the top.
But I like how she throws it right back. I'm like, didn't you turn in your boss last year?
And it's kind of weird that he comes back with, well, I was up front. I had to, and I wasn't in the shadows like you are.
Which he was, because he completely tricked
Yeah,
him. So he used trickery to trap him, so he was in the shadows in a
yeah.
way.
I mean, it just seems really tough with the way he's being with her, and I mean, they liked each other. It made my heart sink. Aw.
I I don't know. He was reacting like such a
Yeah, I didn't
cop.
like it.
No, it didn't seem like Belle.
It was mean.
Yeah,
I
mean Belle.
guess maybe he we're supposed to think he was just being emotional because he's so lonely,
Right.
as Sherlock said.
And as we've said many times in this podcast, they never do anything to show us our reason. So I wonder if his loneliness is going to be an important plot point. Although we only have a couple episodes left of this.
Yeah, but I mean they're really kind of pushing that too, because and he's still lonely.
And so we go after that little argument, I guess you could say. We're back at the brownstone, and Sherlock has made a model complete with little tiny people
Yeah,
of the jail. I was actually surprised Clyde didn't make an appearance in
right.
it.
He should have been, like Godzilla knocking everything over.
Right.
Yeah, so he makes the lock-picking device and diorama using Jones' bra and toothbrush.
Uh, I wonder if there were any really like weird elementary fans trying to figure out like, this what size is Lucy Lou? Looking at the bra. There are people who do stuff that like will pause it trying to figure out that stuff.
Oh man, it might not even have been her bra, like for real.
I know, but you know what I'm saying.
Low.
I'm
The character, you
I'm not,
mean?
no, that's what I mean. But there are some people who act like that stuff matters, who will like go over. Like a lot of people have made comments about different shirts she wears. Like people who watch the show and obsess over the strangest
I
things.
just want to know what he used the toothbrush for. Like what, grinding it down to make a different kind of lockpick or something?
Maybe he was making a shiv.
Well, I was gonna say that, but I mean it wasn't used for anything, so.
Well, we hope. Well, yeah, but lockpick works too, and I like how she says you're mad because an ordinary criminal like escaped from prison. You can figure out things. Like actually, I figured out multiple ways of doing it,
Yes.
and she didn't use any of them. And I really want to see Sherlock escape from prison now.
Yeah, 11 ways.
I can see Sherlock breaking into prison just to prove he could.
I want you to 11, although, you know, that that probably wouldn't that would maybe give criminals a few ideas or something.
Well, yeah, but each prison is different, so they're not going to go, "Hey, that would work
Yeah.
here." And I'm not really. Who knows if a lot of criminals like watching Elementary? If they do, please email the show and we can
Well,
discuss
sometimes
it.
they just give like criminals general ideas. A lot of shows do that. And I think to myself, how many people are going to use that information for something horrible? Didn't we just talk about this last week? I
Probably.
think so. Anyway.
We probably talk about it many times because it happens
Yes.
a lot. Was especially with stuff like
Oh,
CSI.
yeah.
Yeah, we already ranted on that, then we can
Actually,
move on.
Criminal
So,
Minds is worse than
yeah,
that. Anyway, go on.
oh god, don't get me started on how fake that is. Apparently according to Criminal Minds, we have more serial killers than
Yeah.
people in this country. And apparently also all our FBI agents take a private jet to their assignments while spouting
Yeah.
poetry. Oh, Shakespeare once said, "Shut up and get to the case."
I know.
Okay, so anyways, with that last, see, this is why we can't rant about this stuff. With the information of Jeff, Sherlock concludes the rest is another piece of the puzzle, so he goes to the he goes I knew this proved my suspicions about the screwdriver because they investigating the bins with the computer stuff. They actually discover that Nicky Moreno has been dead the whole time.
Yep. Of course. I mean, we know at the beginning that it's not what it appears to be, of course. So we know it's not going to be her. It's just a matter of figuring out how she's not involved.
Right. And they obviously figure out that it was the guard. I think they called him Deputy Warden.
Whatever he was, McCann or whatever his name is.
That's it, McCann. And it's funny when we learn more about him, the fact that he was the Deputy Warden.
Yeah.
And they find out that he was fired from his last job.
And then they go there. His previous employer is also a private prison, and they talk to that guy, Franklin.
then we could, just like another little foreshadowing, he's trying to stall the investigation.
Right. But he does stick them in a room. They just can't take the documents.
Right, and going over the evidence, they realize more and more that the woman was probably a patsy, and the guard probably most likely killed her.
And I don't think that guy, it seemed like that guy would have just, he seemed a little nervous, but I mean, it was so, he probably thought there was no way it was going to get back to him.
Oh, well, the guy's obviously not like a career criminal or anything.
Yeah.
And so now we have this interesting thing with the scene with Bell and Sherlock, where he talks about being with Scott and the case and stuff.
I love every quote in this discussion. This was such a good moment. I love it. I love you're no magnet, and I'm sure as hell no not a fork. And you thought that you broke us up with your mind, and the whole thing about Bell being lonelier.
It makes sense that. Well, he says he's not as lonely as Bell because of Watson. But I think it's different because Bell would be lonely because he needs someone. Sherlock, like, he's got Watson, so he's good. So by that, like, he doesn't process loneliness the same way Bell would.
Right. And then also the whole the great love of my life was a homicidal maniac. And no one is perfect. Saying no one is perfect.
I think the idea of like almost contagious loneliness is very interesting.
Yes. It is kind of, but Bell's reaction to what he said was funny.
Well, it obviously strikes a chord, and then he's actually, again, to show how much Sherlock has changed, he says, "You deserve more," which is very interesting to me.
I mean, I love this whole discussion, and I like how Bell thinks Sherlock sounds crazy at first, but then he thinks more about it. And you can see that he's been thinking about it, and towards the end, he's been thinking about it the whole time.
And then they find out that the reason he was fired is because he was doing favors for the Russian mob that was in prison, but the company that he worked for hid that fact. Like, just said, "Oh, he's fired for this reason," so they wouldn't have to say that their guard was a stoolie for the mob, for the Bratva, and which allowed him to get a job at another company in the state, which I just think is funny.
Yeah.
So the evidence from there leads them to the woman from earlier, because her alibi has a connection to the company that he originally worked for.
Right.
But
and she's a political strategist.
Right, but the thing about the weird part, because they lead to her, because it turns out the Russians that the guard used to work for have no presence in the judge's district, so they have no reason to kill him.
Right.
So I love how mad she gets. You would think only a suspect would get, someone who actually did it would get, but she gets so defensive.
But it's funny how fast she talks. She's a really fast talker.
Well, you can believe she's into politics talking like that.
Yeah.
And so she tells them, "Listen, because of this, we gotta distance ourselves, so why would I do it?" And they realize she's right. But then who would, and the old question, Key Bono, who benefits? And it turns out,
right,
CAG does. What a coincidence.
Exactly.
I love this end scene with this guy. He's just like, "What? That's crazy."
Yeah. That's crazy.
No, but I like the fact, like, hey, know that appointment we canceled? That was so we could execute a search warrant. And the guy's like, "Uh-oh."
And I like how the captain gets in on it at this point.
Yeah. I think, "I'd like you to leave." I would want us to leave too.
Yes.
That almost made it my favorite quote. But one thing I find funny about this well, because okay, what it turns out is the whole thing, all of it, big surprise, was all about money. Now, when I realized it was about money, I was like, "Oh, that's slime," and they're like, "Oh, it means another 25 million for you." I'm like, "Well, let's hear the guy out." I mean, geez, 25 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then they start going over all of it, all the numbers.
Mm. And then it shows how weird and stupid this guy is. Because he got rid of his tux, which they said obviously he got rid of it because it was splattered with blood, and he kept his gun.
Yeah. Got rid of his tux, but kept the gun. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
And with, yeah, that just,
So we find out through the evidence that, um, well, so he did shoot the deputy. Uh-oh.
I shot the
There you go.
sheriff.
I couldn't resist. Uh,
So 2 murders in New Jersey, 1 in New York.
oh, and I like how Belle, like, I've seen how you do things here. You probably want to serve your time in New York.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a few pot shots at Jersey in this episode. Like the one at the beginning, like, so he's running for governor of New Jersey, and he's doing his campaigning in New York. And she just goes, "Have you ever been to Trenton?" Maybe that was the writer's subtle hint to say they want Chris Christie out. But so yeah, they arrest the kid. Obviously, they get the guy, and then we get to back to Bell and Scott. Bell rightly apologizes for what he said, but also we see that it's because what he said rang true with her, and she doesn't like being a spy for RIA. She wants to do it. She just wants it to be her job.
I thought that was so interesting because we have like 3 huge things that happen right there. Because first of all, we know that she cares a lot about what he says because she's actually changing her whole life up just based on what he said. And then but then she needs time to adjust to that. So he still has to be alone for at least for a while. So and then this, then he turns to, interestingly enough, Sherlock for moral support.
The look on his face almost seems to say, "Yeah, I'm here."
Yeah.
And then they play. Now I don't know if there's a word for this little, like just throwing cards, but like they're playing it with the Stanley Cup, which we find out as an afterthought that it's the real Stanley Cup. It'd be really funny if they got the actual Stanley Cup for the episode. And, now, what exactly? I couldn't understand what he said. He said in 1905 the team tried to put it into a lake or something.
Yeah, it wasn't a lake, it was a what's the word? Now I can't remember. But water basically. I don't know.
I know. I should start doing my
pick
rewatch
up
stuff.
what I actually rewound. I couldn't pick up exactly what he said, but it was something to do with
Yeah,
dirty
I
water or something.
But now I like because actually the funny thing, I would talk like this. I am actually having sex in 1 hour.
Yeah. But I like how Sherlock points out that they have friends.
Does anyone else really want to see who Sherlock would set Bell up with?
I'm very curious.
I want an episode where Bell gets set up with one. No, I think I would literally like to see who Sherlock would set Bell up with, and then see. And would the funniest thing if it worked out?
Yeah, that would be funny.
And he says, you think I'm more lonely than you by a factor of?"
And this is what I was talking about. He's been thinking about what Sherlock said that whole time.
Yeah.
Especially after he speaks with her. I mean, he really took everything to heart because he tries to win her back, and then And then when he's lonely again, then he's like, I really am lonelier.
And then we see, and that wraps up the case. And I thought it was a pretty good case. But before we do it, sorry, I forgot. Let's go into Kristen's clue cap. Ooh.
So the crime this week is the murder of a judge, Dennis Vaughn, and then 2 more murders come up over the course of the episode. And there are a ton of clues and moving parts in the episode, but there are really only a few clues that lead them from point A to point B, from the murders to the killers. Okay? So the first clue was that the judge's body smells of soap and the soap is from the Waldorf Astoria, where he had been attending a fundraiser. And then the second clue is that there was one woman, Loretta Nichols, who had left the same event he had attended at about the same time, and then they find that she had been seeing him. Okay, and then also there was a fingerprint on the screwdriver used to murder him, and those fingerprints match an escaped convict, Nikki Morena, who the judge had put away. Okay, and so then but then Deputy Warden Trey McCann is murdered. Okay, and his phone has a text seemingly from Nikki, and Nikki, they had butted heads, and so and then the next clue was that an attorney who knew Nikki says that she had been forced to work in a recycling area, but McCann had signed off on paperwork that said she had requested the move. Okay, and this is where Sherlock deduces that McCann killed Nikki and hid her body in one of the toxic waste containers meant for a landfill, and that's exactly where he finds her. So then they go in this roundabout way of discovering that Loretta, the woman who had been seeing the judge, had been working to help sever ties with Reform Enterprises, which is the private corporation that owns the prison where Nikki had escaped. Okay, and so that means that McCann's previous employer, CAG, had the most to gain from all of this mess, because they were going to jump in and get the new contracts worth $25 million for each prison, and they're the only other private prison company, so they would of course gain the most. And so then the next clue is that one of the executive officers at CAG, this guy named Franklin, his last name is Franklin. There's a photo of him at the same fundraiser with the judge, and then of course, then they find that his gun matches the weapon that was used on McCann. So basically, he set all of this up. So McCann killed Nikki, but this guy Franklin at CAG, he set the whole thing up and killed both, or had the judge killed and killed McCann. Okay, so that's it for the clue cap.
All right. So before we go into final thoughts, I will just quickly, since I only have one favorite line this week, it is, The great love of my life is a homicidal maniac.
Yes, that was very good. But I liked all the quotes during that scene.
We keep getting references to Moriarty. I gotta wonder if she's gonna make a little appearance in the finale.
Gotta. She already made an appearance this season, but not just her voice made an appearance.
Well, she can't do too much. She's busy with. Must have been busy with Throne.
Yeah.
So, what are your final thoughts with this episode?
My favorite thing about the episode was the Sherlock and Belle moments. I loved that. Okay, I loved every part of that. Actually, even my mom and dad watch Elementary, and after my dad had watched it, he what did he say? He said, he usually never talks about TV shows. He thinks everything's dumb, and he never talks about TV shows at all.
Awesome, we should get him a podcast. But he
actually mentioned something. He said, I like those guys from Elementary, Sherlock and Belle. Those guys are cool. So, I don't know, maybe it just runs in the family, but I thought all those scenes were awesome. Like you said, the stuff with Joan was a little bit weird, but it did provide some comedic relief. There was a little comedy relief throughout. The case was, it was pretty good. And the whole thing is rewatch. I think it has high rewatch value, mainly for the Belle and Sherlock moments. But the case was okay. It wasn't like one of my favorites, but it was pretty good. So all in all, I like the episode a lot, actually.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty fascinating case on like the trickery and stuff. The clues connected well. There was some character development, and I would agree that's good rewatch. Also, I would give this good ratings. I mean, it wasn't like a particularly memorable episode, but it was a good one, definitely.
For me, I thought it was kind of memorable for the Belle and Sherlock.
For the Belle, I meant the case itself.
Yeah, that wasn't so memorable, but yeah. Oh, also, okay, this is like a totally stupid thing. When they go to talk to Jeff, I forgot to mention this. I love that guy's voice. Oh my gosh. He had a great voice. It's like really nice, deep, good quality voice. Anyway.
Kristen's on the pull for this episode. She's first Belle, now Jeff.
Well, it's just his voice. He had a good voice. Just saying. Anyway. So that's it for me. That's all I have to say.
Next week we'll be adding a new segment, Kristen's Crush Cap.
Kristen's Crush Cap. It wasn't a crush. I just like the guy's voice. Come on. I have a thing for voices sometimes. Yeah, really? a good voice. It's always nice.
Is that so?
Okay, stop.
Well, now remember, everyone, to get in touch with us. I'm gonna do the whole rest of this podcast like in this board. So.
No, you just sound silly. In this voice.
Well, sorry if this voice intimidates you.
You're like a weird accent.
Yeah. And yeah. I'd like to remind everyone to get in touch with us. We'd like to thank the listeners who caught a little slip up in it, because at first we're like, oh no, we forgot the recording, put the recording in right, but then we went, hey, people are listening. So, man, if you want to comment on us, it's Baker Street Podcast on Facebook, Baker Street Pod on Twitter, and, of course, BakerStreetPodcast@gmail.com. You can find me at InstrumentSanity on Twitter. Kristen, where can they find you?
Facebook.com/Kristen Deer, KristenDyrr.
Kristen learned how to spell from her days on Sesame Street. So,
Hey,
okay, so yeah,
TYRR is
that's just
weird.
if you say so. Now, it's just a couple episodes left of the season, so I mean, most of the other time there was hints of what they were building. I have no idea what they're going to build to this year. So I'm curious to see where they're going to go.
Yeah, they haven't any.
Well, I think the talk of Irene could be a hint.
Yeah.
So we will see. So I believe that's it for this week.
Okay.
It's time for Kristen to depart for the game. It's afoot.